Once again, good evening to everybody. On behalf of Bitsol India, I welcome you all for this today's session on important changes which have been proposed or some are implemented post 47th GST Council meeting. And when we decided to have this session, we have not looked at the Indian calendar, but today we all know it's an Guru Purnima, and on this auspicious day, it would be a pleasure for all of us to listen to our Guru Ashok Nawal sir. So I'll hand over the proceedings to Nawal sir.
I, on my personal behalf, as well as on the behalf of Bitsol India, welcome all of you that you have taken the time to attend this webinar on the very important subject, though 47th GST Council meeting was held on 29th and 30th June. And thereafter, we were knowing what has happened. But we have to see the implications and to ensure we don't lose anything and we are 100% compliant. So, though we have not seen the calendar as Manoj has stated, but it was my fortune that this webinar is kept on the Guru Purnima for expressing the gratitude on my behalf as well as my Bitsol India's behalf to all Gurus who are attending this. Because from all of you, each of you, we have learned a lot. And that is the reason, let me offer a prayer to you. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. So I bow down and take your blessings on the Guru Purnima day. And why it is very important for taking the blessings, because though the changes are easy to say, but it is going to be difficult to implement. And that is the reason the first line which you are seeing it, whether it is the ease of doing business, whether entrepreneurs, trade and industry is supposed to contribute for the growth of the industry, growth of the trade, or they have to be busy in the making of compliances, and that compliances which is not going to result any positive things. And that is the reason, as you know, I have given number of lectures on the GST, where I have always welcomed why GST is needed. Definitely GST is one of the best thing to happen in India. But the way it has been made, it was expected to be a good and simple tax. But the way of provisions and compliances which has been built up and the tables have been designed, in addition to the GST and glitches all the time, whether we are in the ease of doing business, that is the introspection, perhaps all the officers concerned needs to really do it. Now, this total webinar is divided into two parts. First agenda, which I will be covering the gist of this. And the second, Mr. Manoj will explain each of the provision in detail in his normal layman's and lucid language, so that even the common man like me can understand. It was well awaited 47th GST Council meeting. It was well awaited 47th GST Council meeting. It was also said whether the compensation says or that state which is going to get the compensation, whether that period is going to get extended or otherwise, or what will be talking about the rationalization of tax structure and whatnot and whatnot. But the gist of 47 GST Council meeting, I'm not going to a big list of that. But number of exemption notifications has been withdrawn. Now, what is going to be impact that even Manoj is going to explain, but that is very definite that inflation is going to rise, undoubtedly. Rationalization of taxes to reduce the refund on account of inverted duty structure. Definitely, this is a welcome move because unnecessarily in the way inverted duty structure, nobody benefits, but at least because of inverted duty structure, I was not adding that loss of ITC and my tax rate now increased. But ultimately, indirect tax has to be borne by the consumer and consumer tax has increased. Now let us take a case in the infrastructure, construction of road project, construction of those projects, which was earlier 12%, now has been increased to the 18%. Who is going to suffer? Is all of us the taxes which is going to be get paid, that will get added and cost of construction will go up. Clarity on refund applications to expedite the refund process, that is definitely a welcome move. There was the IGST exemption for EOUs and advance authorization, EPCG. Earlier, it was getting extended for the periodical time. That is now no sunset clause is there. Till the time government builds it, it will continue. One major relief to the small taxpayers that they need not file 2 crore, having a threshold limit of 2 crore turnover, no need to file the annual turnover. One more relief which was given to the e-commerce suppliers, to the e-commerce operator operating through the e-commerce. When they are doing the intrastate supplies through e-commerce, the registration was mandatory. Even though my turnover is less than 20 lakhs, I was supposed to take the registration. Now that mandatory registration is removed. During the COVID period, Supreme Court has given and extended the time limit for all filing the appeal, filing the application. So limitation period was extended. So in the 1st March 2020 to 20th February 2022, whatever the due dates used to come for filing the appeal or filing the application, filing the refund claim, filing the petition, and so called so forth, all that Supreme Court suo motu has given the decision, and suo motu has given the decision, and it was said that limitation period will not apply in that period. Now, similarly, this limitation period has been automatically extended. Now, for example, let us talk of the case 2017-18, 18-19, 19-20. Now you have started receiving the ASMT 10, thereafter DRC 01. So 17-18 or 18-19, what was the due date for giving the demand or show cause notice to you? That 2 years from filing the return, annual return, due date of filing the annual return. Now, whatever the due date which was coming in so this period, 1st March to 20th February, almost 2 years will not be counted. So 17-18, normal show cause notice, even without suppression of fact, you can receive it today. So you are, if department starts the audit and any demand comes, show cause notice will not be hit by limitation. Now, one of the things when I said, and this was the reason to call you today immediately, even though without waiting for the changes in the rate notification, rules has been already amended. Notifications and circulars has been already issued, which Manoj is going to deliberate you more and more. What was said in 27th and 28th and 29th June by the GST Council, that we are going to amend the GSTR 3B and we will wait for the public comment. So that public comments will be invited. Unfortunately, no waiting of public comment. GSTR 3B will be amended, is already supposed to be amended by 5th July. But now, as on now, when I'm speaking to you, GSTR 3B new form, what is going to be changed as suggested in the notification, has not been incorporated in the GSTN portal. Now, what is that? What they say, whatever the credit is reflected in GSTR 2B, will be auto-populated in GSTR 3B table 4A5. So, all that GST, whether it's the import, whether it's the B2B transactions or import of services, all that will be automatically reflected in the portal. Now the question will come, you might have not received the tax invoices. You might have not received the goods. Supplier might have uploaded the things. Or out of that, some of the ineligible credit may be there. Some of that may not be your credit itself. Still, that will be auto-populated and no editing will be allowed. Now, what is the result? Now, let us take a case. NBFC or banking companies are entitled to get only 50% of credit. So, they take 50% of credit only and 50% charge off to the expenses. But now they will have to take full credit and then reverse. Rule 38 talks about you have to reverse 50%. You are entitled only for 50%. Suppose you may not be entitled for food credit or goods loss credit. Under section 17.5, motorized vehicle on ITC, not allowed. So under section 17.5, whatever credit is not allowed, first it will be auto-populated and then you are allowed to line by line, you have to dissect it and take it minus. On common credit, you will take it first and reverse it separately. And that all the reversal will be shown separately in column 4B1. Manoj will explain you line by line again. Now, similarly, now let us say section 16, what it talks. You are entitled for availing the input tax credit when there are 5 conditions. A, you have received the goods and services. You have the tax invoice in your possession. You have filed a return and tax is paid on such invoices. And 5th is matching, section 41. So the supplier's invoice and your invoice is matched. It is reflected in your books. So that if all 5 conditions are fulfilled, then only you can take the credit. So what is the conflict if you can see it? When I'm not entitled to take the credit, you are asking me to report that ITC is availed under table 4A5 because it will be auto-populated. If supplier is uploaded in my GSTN number, that will automatically come. So what I'll have to do it? Based on my gate entry, I'll have to see whether this material has been received or not received. Based on GRN, I'll have to check. Then I'll have to check whether tax invoice is received or not. If not, then I have to show it separately. That I have not taken the credit. Reversal column, I'll have to show it in 4B1. And whenever I'm going to receive the credit, I have received the goods, I have received the tax invoice, JRN is there, then that I will take a recredit and that recredit will be reflected in table 4D. Similarly, if you pay after 180 days, you have to reverse, show under the 4B1 column. And whenever you will pay, you will take the recredit, you will show it in that column of 4D column. I don't know how that concept has come in their mind. If I am not entitled, I am not entitled. Why you are forcing me to take the credit, and why you are forcing me to track that transaction and report that transaction? Now, similarly, ineligible ITC under section 16(4), if I have not fulfilled the condition, and ITC is restricted based on the place of provision of supply, that allowed to report those transactions in 4D2. Now, the thing is, what is happening in the normal trade? If I don't take the credit, I charge off to the expenses directly. I book full amount. But now I'll have to show it separately. Now there is a conflict. Now conflict is, let's say how I'll be doing accounting now. Otherwise, I'll not be able to show you that figure. Let's say I have gone to the restaurant. A bill is 105 rupees. 100 rupees the food expenses. 5 rupees is the this. So normally what I will do is, I'll debit it to food expenses 105, or cash, bank, or supplier, I'll credit. Now I'll have to cash that 5 rupees which I have not taken the credit, and I'll have to report in that table separately. Now my accounting standard says, standard of accounting, if anything you are not entitled to avail the ITC, or you are not avail the ITC, you are not entitled for any credit, then whole amount will be charged off to the expenses or to that requisite account, proper account. It will not be taken as ITC receivable. I have to follow my accounting standard also, and for compliance purpose, I have to show it separately, that full credit, because that hotel wala might have reflected my number. Or taxi wala might have reflected my GST number. Or garage repairs wala might have reflected my number. Insurance company might have reflected my number. They will upload those invoices. And that will automatically reflect as ITC availed in 4A column. Now, I am not entitled under 17.5. So I'll have to take that out and again charge off to expenses. So what I'll have to do it? I'll have to create two different accounts. One is normal expense account as a food expenses or staff welfare expenses. And again, whatever the ITC, I'm not going to take it. I'll have to say staff welfare expenses ineligible for ITC. Now, fair enough, whether ineligible ITC, it's okay, one account. So when I have to group as the expenses of a food expenses totally as compared to budget, in my MIS also, I'll have to club all those expenses account. Food expenses, non-eligible credit, GST, food expenses, non-eligible credit, SGST, and food expenses, ineligible credit, IGST. And then total food expenses, with when I'll compare with the budget, I have to compare all those expenses and then do it. This is what is expected now, which every company will have to do it. So every company will have to do it wherever you are not going to take the credit. Or anyway, all the accounts I will put it, because when you are not booked the GRN. If you have not booked the GRN, or you have not received the goods, even though credit will be reflected, and you will have to show it separately under that column. Therefore, you will have to keep it separate account, separate tracking, and that you will have to account it. This is something which was talked, which is expected, and that is mentioned in the rule. Manoj will explain you in more detail. Similarly, as banking and NBFC, when I'm not entitled to 100% credit, I'll directly charge off. Now again, he has to create that different account and do it. A major change which has happened again in hospitals. Room rent more than tariff 5,000 per day will attract GST at the rate of 5%. Notification still is to come. It is a GST council. Now what is happening? Doctors today, since room rent was not taxable earlier, doctors were having a lot of packages that if you have the heart surgery package, they used to do at 3 lakhs or 4 lakhs. With all, it was including doctor's fee, including treatment costs, including the room rent, including the ICU charges, including the nursing fees, and so forth, medicines. Now, if it happens like that, certain expenses, earlier everything was exempted. Now, there is something which is exempted and something which is taxable, so composite supply, it will not come. So it will be covered as a mixed supply at the highest rate if it is a package. So doctors, hospitals will have to revisit that, plan their strategies, plan the compliances. Otherwise, it will be considered as a mixed supply and highest rate of tax will be applicable. Hospitals will have to be very careful. The another which has come, if you are giving the residential dwellings to the business entity, that is taxable. Hotel accommodation price up to ₹1,000 per day. Now, I don't know. Earlier, it was 1,000 to 2,500, 12%. It was extended further 5,000 and then 7,500. And after 7,500, it was 18%. Now, they said up to 1,000, it will be rate of tax will be 12%. Now, why they have used up to, I don't know. It means from ₹1, if you stay in hotels, guest houses, clubs, campsite, other commercial place like a lodging, transit houses, guest houses, all that will attract 12% GST. Now, if you are providing your guest house to the employees and charging something, that also will attract GST. Now, one of the question will come, number of students, India, number of students are there, young population, they are staying in the hostels, college hostel or social hostel, or some of them are staying in the PG hostels. Now, all that PG hostels, all that student hostel will be charged. Now, again, it is the composite supply with meal, or it is a mixed supply, accommodation and milk. That will be the question mark, because it will be decided based on what you are providing and whether it will cover as a naturally bundled. If yes, it will cover as a composite supply. Highest rate of tax, that is 12%, will attract. But if you bifurcate it into the rent and food, then of course we'll have to take it mixed supply. Or 12% separately for room rent and 5% separately for this one. Now the question comes, my students, my education is going to be costly. How much government is going to get of that? A lodging, boarding, campsites, guest houses, all that is now coming under the tax rates. Similarly, residential dwelling in the business entities. Now let us take a case. Number of professionals who are working in corporate, they are on assignment basis. They are on the employee basis sometimes, or they are on the professional basis as independent professionals. They stay at home and they work from home. Today, based on the Supreme Court decision, doctors, architects, engineers, chartered accountants, cost accountants, lawyers, they can work from home. They can come from residence, and that is not considered as a commercial premises. Even the electricity is charged as a residential rate. Now, when I'm hiring the residential place, I have a GST number. So whether it will be called as a business entity, because the definition of business entity is any person carrying out a business or a profession. Now, business has been defined in section 2 in subsection 17, where is a vast definition. Almost each and every person who is earning the bread and butter other than employee is covered there. So whether if they are taking in the residential premises or you are giving residential premises to such people, those all will be taxed. Now, number of hostels are there, number of PG accommodations or studio apartments or service apartments, which are taken by the business entities, will be taxed henceforth. My point of submission was how much government is going to get it. And when government, the circular which Manoj is going to explain you in detail, that why this total credit you have to report and total credit you have to say, because they are going to match all the tax which you have collected through GST 1 and how much credit people are availing and how much, what is happening, so that they are going to use all that data analytics and artificial intelligence tool that which invoice do not have corresponding input invoices and so on and so forth. Now inflation is going to go up. That is I don't think any astrologer is required for that. No need of any astrocrat website or mobile app. All exemptions, majority of the exemptions are taken. Only minimum are left. Number of tax rates has gone up. Food item tax rates has gone up. Renting of residential premises has gone up. Services by RBI, IRDA, SEBI, FSSI, GSTN, all that has been withdrawn. Nuts, spices, copra, jaggery, cotton, which is daily essential, that has gone up. Of course, number of trade associations are opposing this. Notifications are still to come. Hope some wise sense will prevail to curtail the, already you might have seen, we have crossed the wholesale price index today, 7.79, 7.75. If that thing goes on, where the things are going to end, we don't know. When GST rates are going up, exemptions are going down, interest rate has gone up, oil prices has gone up, GST tax rate has been revised and exemptions are withdrawn. Ultimately, consumer has to bear the indirect tax. And that is the reason inflation is going to be very high, built in today, built in prices, built in. Having said this, what is the alternate for you? When you do not have the say, you cannot resist, you have to enjoy. That is said in different contexts. But now, this is also indirectly the same context the GST Council has made on this. create a new accounting code. Fortunately, GSTR 3B, I thought whether this exemption, this ITC, I'll have to report it today. So far not. But that you will have to report it in the next month. Start preparing the GL separately so that you will follow the accounting standards as well as you will follow the reporting and you will make a compliance. Fortunately, GSTR 3B wrongly filed, it is or incomplete file, it is not considered as a non-filing of returns. Now take if income tax similar provision has been brought up. If wrong filing of GSTR 3B is non-filing of GSTR 3B, what will happen? Therefore, be prepared today. Make a separate GL code, compile it, revisit all. You will have to devise the system, whatever has been reported in GSTR 3B, and whatever has not been written is missing in your data, my data. If I have not booked the invoice for whatsoever reasons, I'll have to report it same that I have not taken the credit. And thereafter it will appear again whenever your invoice is taken in your books. At that time, that amount you have to take it separately and show it separately in GSTR 3. Otherwise, there will be always the issues. GSTR 9, this year, fortunately, it has stated that you have to write HSN wise outward summary, that is mandate. Whereas inward supplies, HSN is not mandate for 21, 22, 21, 22. But 22, 23 annual return, all inward supplies, HSN code wise inward supplies, taxable value and tax will have to give it. Use work which you'll have to do it because so far none of your system was able to collect this. In spite of completing 5 years, even though HANA has promised, HANA has not able to give it today. Extension of limitation period, get prepared to get the show cause notice even for 17, 18. And once that clause comes, fortunately, if it is under 73, it's okay, you will be entitled to avail the credit. But if it is under 74, even though you pay, you will not be get the ITC. And this is what is the gist. But now individual line by line impact, major impact of each provision, each notification, each circular, the person who is on the hands-on experience, and he is also my guru for that. I'll hand over this to Mr. Manoj. Manoj, over to you.
So thank you, Naval sir, for setting up the context. And as I've said, on the auspicious day of Guru Purnima, to listen wisdom of words from you is always enriching. So thank you for that. और जब मैं ये सब सुन रहा था, तो I was thinking from where I should start, and it reminded me of a story of a great scientist, एडवर्ड मर्फी. ये एडवर्ड मर्फी एक नासा में साइंटिस्ट था. उसके पास कुछ काम दिया था, एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट उसके पास काम दिया था, बट somehow वो काम फेल हो गया था. And after that failure, a new word was coined, which is even today prevalent, is what you call is as a Murphy's law. So let me tell you, this GST compliances, when I look at the changes, is nothing but a Murphy's law. आज भी मुझे याद है. So what this law says is everything that can go wrong will always go wrong, and on top of that, it can be at the worst possible time. So this is the Murphy's law. So when I relate these words to GST compliances and the recent meeting on which we are discussing, this meeting, 47 meeting, was on the backdrop of 5th anniversary of GST. So instead of getting gifts in terms of rationalization, in terms of simplification, the GST Council has given us this Murphy law. And मुझे इस टाइम ये भी याद आ रहा है जब जीएसटी इंप्लीमेंट हो रहा था, एट दैट टाइम जब जिस तरह से उन्होंने जीएसटी डिजाइन किया था कि हर चीज ऑटो पॉपुलेट होगा, द क्रेडिट यू विल सी इट, यू हैव टू जस्ट एक्सेप्ट इट एंड देन इट वुड गेट दिस, जो कभी नहीं हो पाया। और तभी भी हम सब कह रहे थे कि व्हाट यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इज something very difficult to implement in the length and breadth of India, which is a big country, so many taxpayers, and the way we have worked in past. So एक imperfect system से direct एक perfect system पे jump मारना possible नहीं था। ये 5 साल पहले भी हमने काफी कहा था, but तभी भी the bureaucrats or the implementers were sure that this would be there, we would have this matching and all those things. आज भी उनका मैचिंग का वही थॉट प्रोसेस है, and with that thought process the amendments are proposed in GSTR 3B returns also. Now अपने as a taxpayer what is there in our hand, कोई एक ही चीज अपने हाथ में है, वो है to keep calm and accept that Murphy's law prevails, that if something has to go wrong it would go wrong and at the worst possible time. सो जीएसटी के 5th एनिवर्सरी के दिन ये अपने को सबको गिफ्ट मिला है जीएसटी कंप्लायंसेस चेंजेस का. सो नवल सर इन हिज प्रेजेंटेशन हैज कवर्ड in brief that what changes are proposed into it. There would be some repetition, but still I would like to cover everything in detail so that we can understand those changes and be ready with those changes whatever are required in our systems. So first thing, what are the changes proposed in GSTR 3B? Before going into changes, let's look at the rationale. So if you look at the circular issued by the government, it says that, boss, we have difficulties in accountal of GST and its settlement, and hence we want you to change your way of reporting. So in simple way, in हिंदी, बॉस मुझे कुछ काम है बट आपको वो करके देना है, बिकॉज यू आर द पुअर फेलो टैक्स पेयर. I am not able to settle the fund between center and state, but now in order to help me in settling that funds, you have to report in GSTR 3B the way I want you to report. Naval sir has covered in his presentation very important point that ITC is an ITC. Whether I report in this table, that table, what table, still it is a legal ITC what I am eligible to avail the credit as per section 16 of the GST Act. But the government wants you, the GST Council wants you. So I am not here blaming only central government, because this GST Council comprises of central government, state government, everybody. So all have decided that as we are not able to settle the funds in totality, you have to start reporting the way we want you to report. And second rationale what they have given is uniformity amongst the taxpayer in reporting. So certainly आप फॉर्म कॉम्प्लेक्स बनाओगे तो यूनिफॉर्मिटी कहां से रहेगी? आप जिस तरह से ऑटो पॉपुलेशन की बातें कर रहे हैं वो उसको एडिट करने का भी ऑप्शन दे रहे हैं. So there would be difference in the way taxpayer are reporting. However, I buy this point in terms of uniformity in reporting. If you want to change, you can change to the extent of uniformity in reporting. But the extent to which they intend to change the reporting is where I have a problem, and that too for settlement of funds between state and central government. And I'll tell you from where this point came. The point came from the fact that we all know there are block credits under GST for which nobody is entitled to avail the credit. The amount of that credit should go to the state, in which ultimately those goods or services are getting consumed. Now people are not reporting that credit itself in 3B. So they are finding it difficult to settle that amount. They are not sure whether people are leaving that credit because it is eligible, ineligible, or what? Just because looking at GSTR 1 or 3B, nobody will get to know that for those transactions, the credit would be blocked. So government wants that you have to report clearly what credit is blocked, so that once it is blocked, they will settle those amounts accordingly, and from where this point came. So these are the two rationales which government has clarified while issuing these changes. Second important aspect which I would be dealing is effective date. So the effective date, broadly, the changes have came from the notification 14. There's a mistake. It is not 2017. It is 2022, dated 5th July 2022. So the notification says the effective date is 5th July. Now the question will come in everybody's mind, that is it applicable for all the returns filed after 5th July? Or it is applicable for the return for the tax period starting from 5th July? ये क्वेश्चन सबके मन में आएगा, एंड इसमें बहुत से कॉम्बिनेशंस रहेंगे. Assume a situation where I have not filed my returns for last 2-3 months, and suddenly you ask me to file the return in this way. How I will comply with it? Correct? Today I am filing for past 2-3 months, and I don't have that much data what you are expecting me to report. How I will file my returns? Or I need to only file the return for transactions starting from 5th July, and 5 July के पहले के कुछ नहीं करना है. We have to also take in account, of course, I am not answering this question, or I will answer this question during the deliberation. But first, I am trying to put those questions before everybody. Now, what would happen whether government, the GST portal, which we all know is another law. एक तो GST law है, then there is another law which is run by GSTN. And in one of the RTI reply, they have clearly stated, whatever we say, even though we say it is not the law, but tomorrow they will say you avail from 2B, you will have to avail. Then they say no, 2B हमारा अभी तक clear नहीं हुआ, आप 2A से ले लो. Then that is also directions given by GSTN. If I follow, the GSTN themselves say that it is not the law. Ours are only guidelines. So what would happen if the GSTN only provides the return in the new format and not the old format? What I'll do? Or are they going to provide me two formats of return, one for transaction till from up to June, and what is the transaction from 5th July? So these are a lot of questions which are there in everybody's mind. And what I feel, or what we as an organization feel, that going forward, there would be only one form. You have to comply with this form because the rule is effective from this date, and whatever returns are getting filed after this date would be bound by these rules. Okay. Now, let's look at what the changes have been proposed in this. Now, this was the table. Particularly, the changes are there in the input tax credit table, which is table 4 of the GSTR 3B. So if you look at table 4, current table 4 of GSTR 3B, it is divided into 4 parts. Part A was talking about input tax credit on import of goods, which is auto-populated from IGST. Then import of services, which is editable, you have to put it. Then inward supplies liable to reverse charge, again we can put it. And wherever the supplier has flagged the invoice, those transactions would come there. Inward supplies from ISD, again it is auto-populated based on the return filed by the input service distributor. And all other ITC would come under A5. And then next, table B, the section B was pertaining to reversal. So in section B, the reversal, what the wording was, on account of rule 42 and 43 of SGST, CGST rules, and any other reversal. And after reducing these reversal from amount coming from table A, the net ITC available was getting hit on the electronic credit ledger of the taxpayer. And after that, if you look at the D section, it was more about an information wherein they used to say what is ineligible ITC as per section 17(5) and others. Now, इसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या हो रहा था? इसमें प्रॉब्लम ये हो रहा था कि the section 17(5), which is block credit, they were asking in section D, that is fourth section of the table, which had no relation with the input tax credit hitting in the electronic credit ledger. So जब वो टेबल का इंफॉर्मेशन का कोई रिलेवेंस नहीं था, तो नेचुरली टैक्स पेयर वॉज नॉट रिपोर्टिंग एनीथिंग देयर. जो क्रेडिट मुझे नहीं लेना है वो मैं मेरे बुक्स में भी नहीं आइडेंटिफाई करता था और रिटर्न्स में भी कुछ नहीं डालता था. सो मेजॉरिटी इन केसेस, even though the format was saying that you have to report it here, most of the taxpayer were reporting it as in zero, the ineligible ITC under 17(5). हाँ, अगर आपका रिवर्सल कोई 42-43 में है तो आप वो सब रिवर्स करते थे एंड नेट आईटीसी आप बराबर से इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर को हिट करते थे फ्रॉम दैट कॉलम सी. नाउ व्हेन द प्रॉब्लम केम इन सेटलमेंट ऑफ दीज अमाउंट्स, now the government is proposing to change this 4B. Now what is that proposal? The green section is not changing anywhere. That is section A, ITC available. इंपोर्ट ऑफ गुड्स का ऑटो पॉपुलेट होगा. आज भी ये फील्ड उसके बाद भी एडिटेबल है, कल प्रपोज्ड भी एडिटेबल ही रहेगा. इसमें वी हैव केम अक्रॉस इन सिचुएशन वेयर बिल ऑफ एंट्री डू नॉट come in auto population in some cases. Particularly the challenges are coming in when supplies is made by an SEZ unit. तो वो SEZ ऑनलाइन के पोर्टल के थ्रू आइसगेट एंड उसके बाद GSTN portal, that was a challenge. So credit of those bill of entries was not appearing. So आज भी ये auto population होता है, but एक editable है, कल भी ऐसा ही रहेगा. But आपको edit करते टाइम you should be very sure for what is the purpose you are editing. Import of services, no change. Reverse charge, no change. Inward supplies to ISD, no change. All other ITC, the description, no change. But the guideline says here that whatever is appearing in GSTR 2B, that you have to put that amount here. Plus, there is some plus which I'll come. What plus that would come? So again, I'll tell you here that as on date, also it is proposed that all other ITC on account of B2B supplies, which is getting auto-populated in A5, would remain editable. Not that it would not be editable. It would remain editable. The purpose of being made it editable, I'll explain you subsequently that why this table is still editable. Then comes section B. Again, here they have made a changes. Now here, earlier, if you look at it in table A in ITC reversal, they used to ask me only rule 42-43 reversal. Now here they have amended. Now what they have said, you avail everything in 5. You first add everything in A5 and then whatever is block credit, you report here including block credit under section 17(5) or any reversal under 42-43 or any reversal under rule 38 for banking and financial institute. So पहले आपको सब लेना है और फिर आपको टेबल 4B1 में आपको रिवर्स करना है. So just hold on, I'll start the marker so that so whatever is reversal you have to report here. All other ITC में आपको पूरा लेना है what is appearing in 2B except for the credits which are time barred. यानी एक साल के बाद का कोई इनवॉइस होगा या तो that you have to report it separately, which in any case GSTN is right now providing the 16(4) which is ineligible ITC plus ITC restricted due to place of provision. यानी the taxpayer is registered in Maharashtra, but something has came in is 2A, wherein the place of supply says Delhi. So that the Maharashtra guy cannot avail the credit. ये कब हो सकता है? होटल के केस में हो सकता है, या if you have asked somebody to deliver goods to Delhi but asked you to bill it in Maharashtra. So in that cases, the place of supply would be other than the residence of the taxpayer. So that you have to report separately in table 4D2. Correct? So all other ITC other than these two will come in A5. And we are hoping that this would be initially auto-populated. आज भी आप अगर GST 2B का रिपोर्ट लेते हैं तो वो 2B के रिपोर्ट में आपको एक कॉलम आता है एलिजिबिलिटी इनएलिजिबिलिटी का. अगर आप वहां पे फिल्टर लगाते हैं इनएलिजिबल तो आपको ये दो ट्रांजैक्शन दिखेंगे 16(4) वाले और ITC is not eligible on account of POS, and rest would come here. Okay, so then after availing everything, you have to reverse the credit based on rule 38, 42, 43 and section 17(5). So आपको पहले पूरा ऊपर बताना है, फिर माइनस करना है. अब हो सकता है जैसे नवल सर ने भी उसमें बोला कि देयर कैन बी नॉन अवेलमेंट ऑफ क्रेडिट ऑन अकाउंट ऑफ एनी अदर रीजंस आल्सो, जैसे आई हैव नॉट रिसीव्ड गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज बट सप्लायर हैज सेंड, सप्लायर ने इनवॉइस किया 30th को और मेरे पास गुड्स 30th या 31st तक आए नहीं. आई विल नेचुरली अवेल व्हेन द गुड्स आर कमिंग इन द नेक्स्ट मंथ. So that entire amount you have to reverse from table 4B2. So अगर in simple terms आपको अगर बताना है, जो भी आपका परमानेंट रिवर्सल है, जो आपको रिवर्स करना ही है, you are not eligible, that would be reduced from table 4B1. और जो भी टेम्पररी रिवर्सल है which is coming in 2B, जो आपको बाद में आप ले सकते हो, वो आपको बताना है अदर रिवर्सल्स में. सो 4B2. ठीक है. अब मुझे एक्सप्लेन करने में इतना टाइम लग रहा है, एक्चुअल वर्किंग करने में ये सब बहुत डिफिकल्ट होने वाला है. सो 2B का रिकंसिलेशन करना, ये सब आइडेंटिफाई करना, पहले सब लेना, और किसी ने ये रिवर्स नहीं किया तो अल्टीमेटली वो क्रेडिट जाके हिट करेगा इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर को. So if somebody do not work on these two aspects, you will end up in availing more credit than what you are eligible. So this is important change and important thing which as a taxpayer we have to know. Then comes the table D, which is more of a informative. यहाँ पे कहीं भी आपका इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर पे हिट नहीं करेगा. Now table D1 में क्या बोलते हैं? ITC reclaimed which was reversed in table 4B2. जो अपन ने ऊपर अदर्स पढ़ा, जो मैंने बोला कि टेम्पररी रिवर्सल जो आपने किया है, वो अमाउंट आपको यहाँ पे डिक्लेयर करना है. मैं वापस आपको बोल रहा हूं, दिस टेबल डी इज ओनली स्टैटिस्टिकल व्हेन इट कम्स टू इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर. ये अमाउंट आपका इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर में हिट नहीं करने वाला है. करेक्ट. सो व्हेन आई से दिस, आपके मन में क्वेश्चन आएगा कि भैया ये तो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर में हिट करना चाहिए. अगर मैं टेबल D1 में बता रहा हूं जो मुझे रिक्लेम करना है, तो इट शुड समवेयर हिट इन माय इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर आल्सो. देन to hit that amount in electronic credit ledger, what you need to do is you need to add this amount in A5. ऑल अदर ITC में आपको यहां पर ये अमाउंट ऐड करना है. सो जब मैंने शुरुआत में आपको बोला था देयर इज अ पर्पस फॉर विच स्टिल दिस A5 kept editable is because of this fact, so that you can add back the reclaimable credit into all other ITC. अब फिर आपके मन में क्वेश्चन आएगा कि भैया फिर 2B में डिफरेंस आएगा कि 2B में एक अमाउंट दिख रहा है और मैंने रिक्लेम ज्यादा करके वो अमाउंट फिर से बड़ा हो गया. बट देन दिस D1 वुड कम टू योर रेस्क्यू, बिकॉज आप D1 में डिक्लेयर कर रहे हैं कि इतना अमाउंट मैंने रिक्लेम किया है. I just hope that we don't get demand just because there's difference in all other ITC without considering this declaration what I am putting in D1. बिकॉज आजकल क्या एक फैशन हो गया है सिस्टम जनरेटेड नोटिस देने का, भैया ये अमाउंट माइनस ये अमाउंट, ये आपका डिमांड है. So it is all the important aspect that when we are adding that amount in all other ITC, we are showing that amount in D1 also, which is though statistical in nature. हो आप बोलेंगे मैंने इधर नहीं बताया तो क्या होगा, नहीं बताया तो टैक्स वो उसको क्या दिखेगा, जो अथॉरिटी है उसको उसको ये दिखेगा कि आपके 2B में क्रेडिट सपोज 1 लाख है और आपने यहाँ पे 1,50,000 लिया, तो आपने 50,000 ज्यादा कहां से लिया. Then he'll start questioning. So once you put that amount 50,000 here, then it is expected that he will match this. अरे भाई 1.5 लाख में 50,000 उसने डिक्लेयर किया कि उसने रिक्लेम किया, and after reducing that it is matching with 2B, then whatever is reported is correct. So understand, ये चेंजेस भले ही आपको वर्डिंग में दिखेंगे कि भाई 4 ही वर्ड्स चेंज किए हैं, but अपने operations में in day to day our operation, these would make lot of changes in the way we report or the way we operate into this. Now what are the important takeaways? So again, to summarize what all we have discussed, जो टेबल 4A5 है, there we have to report the full credit of tax amount appearing in GST or 2B plus reclaimed credit. So ये दो चीज का समेशन अपने को टेबल 4A5 में डालना है. And then next step, what I am supposed to do, I am supposed to identify the credit under Rule 38, Banking and Financial Institute को, Rule 42, 43, reversal on account of exempt supplies on inputs and input services, 17(5) block credit I have to identify, and then credit not eligible in tax period on account of Rule 37, that I have not paid consideration or I have not received goods, or this reversal on account of non-payment of tax to the suppliers. ये सब चीजें मुझे आइडेंटिफाई करके टेबल 4B2 में डालना है. Okay, then I have to report the reversal which I have discussed. It's a whatever is permanent reversal would come in table 4B1. इसका क्रेडिट जिसका अपने को नहीं मिलने वाला है परमानेंटली, दैट आई विल रिपोर्ट इन 4B1. जिसका क्रेडिट मुझे बाद में मिलने वाला है, which I am supposed to reverse, that I have to report in table 4B2. ठीक है, and then whatever is reclaimed credit I have to report in the other table. Okay, so this is the takeaway. एक एग्जाम्पल लेते हैं. आई एम पुटिंग एन एग्जाम्पल बिफोर यू. मैं यहाँ पे थोड़ा ज्यादा टाइम स्पेंड कर रहा हूं, बट विल टेक एन एग्जाम्पल हियर. नाउ सपोज एन एग्जाम्पल, वी टेक इट सिंपल. वी हैव 4 इनवॉइसेस. एक इनवॉइस है, आई हैव रिसीव्ड द गुड्स, द आईटीसी इज एलिजिबल, द अमाउंट इज 2 लाख. इनवॉइस 2, आई एम एलिजिबल फॉर आईटीसी बट आई हैव नॉट रिसीव्ड द गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज. इट हैज केम इन जीएसटीआर 2B, द अमाउंट इज 1 lakh. There is another credit coming through bill of entry, that is 10 lakh credit. And there is one more invoice which came in GSTR 2B, which is ineligible pertaining to steel, which I have used for construction of building, and the amount of that credit is 3 lakhs. So what today we are doing, today what most of the people is, अगर अपन देखे जाए तो नेट आईटीसी कितना है अपना, 10 लाख बिल ऑफ एंट्री का मिलने वाला है, और 2 लाख जो पहले इनवॉइस का है, टोटल क्रेडिट मुझे 12 लाख मिलने वाला है. तो क्या करते थे आज अपन, स्ट्रेट अवे टेबल A5 में डालते थे 2 लाख, दैट इज ऑल अदर आईटीसी, और इंपोर्ट के सेक्शन में अपन 10 लाख डालते थे, एंड नेट क्रेडिट 12 लाख का रिपोर्ट होता था इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर में. ये अपन करते थे. नाउ आगे चल के क्या करना है, सेम एग्जांपल. आगे चल के क्या करना है, इन टेबल A5 आई हैव टू रिपोर्ट 6 lakhs. ये 6 lakhs कहां से आए, 2 लाख जिसका मुझे क्रेडिट एलिजिबल था, प्लस 1 लाख जिसका मुझे गुड्स नहीं आया पर मुझे मालूम है एलिजिबल है, दैट आई विल हैव टू ऐड देयर. थर्ड, बिल ऑफ एंट्री जिसका 10 लाख है, वो तो सेपरेट लाइन आइटम में आएगा. एंड ये 6 लाख का ब्रेकअप, 2 लाख, 1 लाख और 3 लाख जो स्टील का इनवॉइस था. सो 2 lakhs plus 1 lakhs plus 3 lakhs, टोटल 6 lakhs I have to report in table 4A5. पहले मैं कितना रिपोर्ट करता था यहाँ पर 2 लाख, अभी कितना रिपोर्ट कर रहा हूं 6 लाख। फिर उसके बाद में मुझे 3 लाख रिवर्सल पुट करना है इन टेबल 4B, एंड I have to put another 1 lakh in table 4B2 in other reversal as 1 lakh। और ये सब प्लस माइनस जगलरी वगलरी सब करके अल्टीमेटली मेरा नेट आईटीसी कितना रहने वाला है? नेट आईटीसी मेरा उतना ही रहने वाला है, दैट इज 12 लाख। 10 लाख मेरे बिल ऑफ एंट्री का, 2 लाख ये 6 लाख में से 3 लाख और 1 मैंने माइनस किया, 4 लाख, और अल्टीमेटली 2 लाख बचा। सो देयर इज नो चेंज इन आईटीसी। What is changing? Changing is reporting and tracking requirement. So on taxpayer, there is more reporting and tracking requirement on account of this change. That is what we have to understand and work together. I know you would be having a lot of questions or so many doubts which are there. I would request you to put in question and answer section or chat box, whatever you feel on this. Certainly, we are going to take all those questions subsequently. So I hope you are clear about what are the proposed changes in GSTR 3B. Correct? So, जो जहां से स्टार्ट किया था, we all know Murphy's law, correct? So जो चीज गलत होना है वो होना ही है। सो अब देखना ये है कि ये जो प्रपोज किया है ये कितने लेवल तक इंप्लीमेंट होगा, एंड मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंटली विल गो थ्रू व्हाट आर द स्टेप्स द टैक्स पेयर हैज टू डू, जो नवल सर हैज आल्सो कवर्ड इन डिटेल. I'll not ponder upon it again more, but I will be very brief that what as a taxpayer you have to do. You have to now report every GST you are paying to your vendor. आपको हर एक GST का रुपया आपको अकाउंटिंग करना है, be it eligible, be it ineligible. जो एलिजिबल क्रेडिट है वो रिसीवेबल में जाएगा, जो इनएलिजिबल क्रेडिट है आपको अलग से आइडेंटिफाई करना पड़ेगा और वो एक्सपेंस में जाएगा. हियर आप ये बोलेंगे कि भैया ये कहां से लेकर आ गए ये चेंज. सो अगेन आई वुड लाइक टू रिमाइंड एवरीबडी टू व्हाट वी हैव प्रपोज, वी हैव deliberated when the GST was getting implemented. हमने ये डे 1 से सबको कहा था कि आपको ये अकाउंट्स वेदर इट एलिजिबल और इनएलिजिबल आपको अलग रखना है, एंड द डे आफ्टर 5 years दिस इज नाउ द रियलिटी. बिकॉज जब तक आप ये अलग नहीं करेंगे, जब तक आप ये अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम अलग नहीं करेंगे, ये कोई भी अकाउंटिंग के बाहर ट्रैक करना वुड बी अ सुसाइडल. सो I still recollect what Naval sir used to say when the GST was implemented, कि now GST is integrated with your books of accounts. Now your books of accounts and GST cannot say separately. Excise में चल जाता था सेनवेट का रिकॉर्ड अलग, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का रिकॉर्ड अलग, लाइबिलिटी का रिकॉर्ड अलग, बट कम GST your accounting records and your GST return has to match in toto. आपको कोई चॉइस नहीं इसमें डिफरेंस रखने का. देन एक आपके पास एडिशनल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आ गई जो बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स में मेंटेन करना डिफिकल्ट है, बिकॉज बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट में जो क्रेडिट एलिजिबल है वो एलिजिबल है, बट आपको एक आउट ऑफ द बुक्स ट्रैकिंग क्या रखना पड़ेगा कि ऐसा क्रेडिट जो मेरे 2B में आया है पर मुझे वो रिक्लेम करना इन सब्सिक्वेंट पीरियड. सो मुझे पहले वो बताना है, फिर माइनस करना है और फिर रिक्लेम करना है. भैया ये तो मैं कोई बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स में मेंटेन नहीं करता हूं. अगर मुझे इनवॉइस ही नहीं आया, मुझे गुड्स ही नहीं आया, तो आई नेवर रिकॉर्ड दोज इनवॉइसेस इन माय बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स. सो दिस ट्रैकिंग certainly would be outside your books of accounts, and there you have to seriously look out for taxpayers or professionals who are helping you to track these things. Of course, we do have our own softwares, we do have our own controls wherein we help our tax clients to keep track of all those things. Now question also comes in your mind कि when I am receiving goods, I may not know whether that goods would go into exempted or that would go into taxable. What I should do at the time of filing return? I may get to know that only when I am consuming the goods. So what I am supposed to do? So in that case, you should avail it full, and the day you consume it for exempted, then you should report it as a reversal. But you have to first avail it in complete. So as a taxpayer, you have to review your existing systems. You have to redefine your systems, the way your booking happens. your accounts payable, your PO system has to be complete and clear to account for every GST penny what you are paying out of it. Now, there can be questions in your mind that क्या होगा अगर मैंने ये सब नहीं किया? What would happen? Okay? क्योंकि आप ये बोल सकते हैं कि मैंने जो ITC लेना था वो मैंने ITC ले लिया. क्या करेंगे वो कर करके? What they'll do? But you have to keep in mind that now this is the law, the rule has changed, and then you would be subjected to penal action if you don't comply with these rules. Correct? So you have to be very clear. You cannot completely ignore these changes. Of course, you may take a time to ensure that these systems are redefined, replaced, or implemented in the way the government is expecting. But you cannot say that I will not comply with it, because there would be penal provisions. There are penal provisions under the GST Act when you do not file the return the way they are supposed to be filed. Now, next important change which is applicable for all the taxpayer who are subjected to e-invoice. This I am saying with very responsibly and very vocally. So you have to be very clear. We all know all taxpayers having taxable turnover more than 20 CR for any period starting from 1718 are subjected to e-invoice regulations. But there are certain taxpayers or certain transactions which are not covered with e-invoice. Okay, so government want a declaration on invoices of taxpayers who are coming under the threshold of e-invoice, but they are not issuing e-invoices because there are certain exemptions for issuing, or there are some transaction for which the law says you are not required to raise an e-invoice. For those, you are supposed to declare that invoice. I know it is very complicated, whatever I have said, that what does it mean? So I have put forward before you the exact wording of the rule. So it is, the rule 46 is already amended. Correct? आप बोलोगे कितना time है? There's no time. The rule is already amended. What the rule says, that the taxpayer has to give a declaration that the invoice is not required to be issued in the manner specified in sub-rule 4 of Rule 48. This sub-rule 4 of Rule 48 talks about generation of e-invoice. In all cases, I'm underlining here, in all cases where an invoice is issued other than in the manner so specified in sub-rule 4 of Rule 48. So a taxpayer, to make it very simple, ये कैसा है कि the wording of the law sometimes are very difficult. They ऐसा घुमा के खाते हैं, सीधा नहीं बोलते कि किसको ये डिक्लेरेशन देना है, ये घुमा घुमा के बोलते हैं. अब इन्होंने क्या बोला है, ऐसा टैक्सपेयर जिसको ई इनवॉइस एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर के बेसिस पे एप्लीकेबल है. आई थिंक टिल दिस पॉइंट एवरीबडी इज क्लियर. बट some of their divisions or some of their units may not be required to prepare tax invoices with e-invoice because of certain exemption. Okay, now which are those? आपके मन में क्वेश्चन रहेगा, ऐसे कौन से ट्रांजैक्शन है भाई जहां पे मुझे ई इनवॉइस नहीं जनरेट करना पड़ता है. करेक्ट. So what declaration, before going into that, let's look at the declaration. You have to declare on your invoice that we have hereby declare that though our aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year from 1718 onwards is more than aggregate turnover notified in sub-rule this, we are not required to prepare an invoice in terms of provision of state sub-rules. Okay, ये declaration आपको invoice पे देना है. अब ये किसको देना है और कौन से ट्रांजैक्शन पे देना है? These are the taxpayers or transaction on which you are supposed to declare. Okay, now who are exempted from preparing e-invoice? Insurer or banking companies. उनका turnover exceed होता है, but they are not required to जनरेट इनवॉइस, जनरेट ई इनवॉइस, नेचुरल है, बैंक चार्जेस एवरी ट्रांजैक्शन पे लेवी होते हैं. They say that they can raise a monthly invoice and they are exempted from e-invoice. Now bankers have to declare this, or insurer have to declare this, that कि हमारा aggregate turnover जा रहा है, but we are not required to prepare e-invoice. Then second is GTA. Again, they are not required to issue e-invoice because their that chalan itself is termed as an invoice. देन पैसेंजर ट्रांसपोर्ट सर्विस, यानी ये अपने एयरलाइन या टिकट्स जो अपने को मिलते हैं, दे आर नॉट सपोज टू रेज एन इनवॉइस, बट टिकट इटसेल्फ इज इनवॉइस. सो ऑन दैट दे आर सपोज टू डिक्लेयर दिस, that we are, though our turnover exceeds, we are not required to raise an invoice because we are exempted. Next important change for multiplexes. So all tickets of multiplexes should have this declaration. I am not sure मल्टीप्लेक्स में टिकट्स इतना छोटा रहता है, डिक्लेरेशन इतना बड़ा दिया, वो इतना बड़ा डिक्लेरेशन इतने छोटे टिकट्स में कैसे प्रिंट करेंगे? सो आई डोंट नो, आई मीन दे आर आस्किंग यू टू पुट दैट यू हैव टू पुट इट. देन नेक्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट, इफ एसईजेड यूनिट्स आर एग्जम्प्टेड फॉर रेजिंग ई इनवॉइस. नेचुरली जब एसईजेड यूनिट डोमेस्टिक में सेल करते हैं, दैट इज टर्म्ड एज एन इंपोर्ट और बिल ऑफ एंट्री वहां पे फाइल होता है, हेंस दे आर एग्जम्प्टेड फ्रॉम रेजिंग ई इनवॉइस. सो इन दैट सिचुएशन they have to declare on their invoice that our aggregate turnover exceeds, but by virtue of exemption we are not required to issue an e-invoice. Hence we are giving an invoice which is not compliant with e-invoice provision. Next important thing, which is applicable for all taxpayers, for all taxpayers, if you are issuing any B2C invoices, we all know e-invoice is applicable only in case of B2B transaction, and there are these exemptions which are given in notification 13/2020. Okay, if you look at this notification 13/2020, which clearly says that e-invoice need to be prepared for supplies to another registered person. Okay, so in that case you are not required to prepare e-invoice for B2C transaction. Nobody is preparing. Now question comes that whether I am required to prepare, give this declaration on B2C invoice. I'll like to bring your attention back to that rule amendment. Now what that rule says, again purposefully I have highlighted and underlined. The rule says that you have to give this declaration in all cases where an invoice is issued other than the manner so specified in this. So आप जो भी invoice raise कर रहे हो, all invoices other than for what you are raising invoice. So naturally B2C will also be covered here. So every taxpayer जिसका e-invoice है और अगर उनका एक भी B2C invoice है, तो आपको ये declaration देना पड़ेगा invoice पे. Okay? Again the question may come in, कौन से date से देना है? From which date it is applicable? It is already applicable. ये notification में the rule has been amended. Wide notification 14/2020, 5th July के बाद this is applicable. Now what will happen to invoices which are already issued? No, the provisions are again clear. If you do not comply with any of the provision, there is a penal provision. So सब तरफ से आपकी बजाना है, आपको कोई टाइम नहीं देना है. Okay. Now after these so many, whatever you may call bad changes, good changes, there is one good change for taxpayer and one good change for the officers. They have got a honeymoon period. ये जो कोविड का पीरियड था, people were working from home. Naval sir has explained, Supreme Court का decision आ गया, सब आ गया. Then that period, the limitation period was to be excluded. Very well appreciated. Nobody was working. Nobody can put sufficient time on raising demands. So this period, what period is the time limit from 1st March 2020 to 20th Feb 2022. This entire period of 2 years would be excluded from the limitation period. Okay, not only for demands but also for refund. So अगर आप का कोई रिफंड वो पीरियड में ड्यू डेट गिरता है 1 मार्च 20 से 28 फरवरी, तो वो पूरा पीरियड निकल जाएगा उस, एंड देन ओनली योर नेक्स्ट पीरियड वुड स्टार्ट. So this is a welcome change, not only for the taxpayer but also for the department people. I have a sympathy with entire department people. वो भी human being थे. They were also they were working under the COVID environment. We were also working under the COVID environment. दोनों को टाइम लिमिट का एक्सटेंशन चाहिए था, वो दे दिया. एंड दिस इज इन लाइन विद व्हाट सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज सेड. सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने 15 मार्च से दिया था, जब से लॉकडाउन शुरू हुआ था. GST Council become very generous. They are given additional 15 days and it starts from 1st March and this change is effective from 1st March 2020. ऐसा नहीं कि आज है ताकि इसके पहले के चेंजेस कुछ एप्लीकेबल नहीं रहेंगे. So this is good change from department as well as taxpayer perspective. Now what are the other proposals which are there? मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग, जहां पे बहुत सा लिटिगेशन था डे 1 से, बहुत से एडवांस रूलिंग थे, कुछ फेवरेबल थे, कुछ अनफेवरेबल थे, दैट इफ एट ऑल द एम्प्लॉयर आर प्रोवाइडिंग फूड और बस फैसिलिटी टू देयर एम्प्लॉइज, whether and recovering some amount, whether it would be subjected to GST or not. And again there were demon of वैल्यूएशन रूल की इसको कैसे वैल्यू करना है, क्या करना है, हाउ दैट हैज टू बी वैल्यूड, whether it is to be valued because employer employees are related person, उसका वैल्यूएशन ओपन मार्केट से करना है, क्या कर. So there were so many things lying around with this issue, and initially the department was clear this should be made taxable, and hence it took lot of times because इसमें गवर्नमेंट को रेवेन्यू कुछ आना नहीं है, बट कंप्लायंस टैक्स पेयर का बढ़ना है. हाउ मच यू रिकवर, what is the value of that food, what is the value of that services, and what government is getting by taxing this, what they are getting by taxing this. So the perquisite what are provided, now it is clarified, they have issued a circular that any perquisite including food, bus, which is provided by an employer as a part of contractual agreement entered between both of them, that would not be subjected to GST. अब यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट इज वेरी स्मार्ट. दे हैव नॉट क्लियरली सेड कि भाई जो आप देते हो सबको एग्जम्प्ट कर दो, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं. उन्होंने एक वर्ड यहाँ पे क्या डाला, इन टर्म्स ऑफ कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल एग्रीमेंट एंटर्ड. Now what is the contractual agreement between both of employer and employee? Then the contractual agreement would come boil down to appointment letter. We have seen in many cases the appointment letter is silent on these perquisites. The appointment letter generally do not specify कि हम आपको खाना देंगे. Gone are the days. Today a lot of companies are providing so many things. So they can't put everything in their employment letter कि भाई हम तुमको ये देंगे, हम आपको चेयर ऐसा देंगे, हम आपको कोल्ड ड्रिंक ऐसा देंगे, हम आपको ये देंगे, आपको नींबू पानी देंगे. क्या क्या लिखेंगे अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर में? एंड दीज आर इवॉल्विंग इन नेचर. करेक्ट. आज कल मैं ऐसे अभी लिंक्डइन पे ऐसे ही देख रहा था. आई हैव सीन दैट दे आर प्रोवाइडिंग स्लीपिंग बैग्स इन द ऑफिसेस so that you can take a quick nap. They are providing infrastructure to employees. So what all things would happen for addressing work from home? No, everything cannot come to contractual agreement. So but at the same time you have to be very clever in drafting your appointment letter to get out of this wording of contractual agreement. Your appointment letter has to be drafted smartly so that even if in future something comes, you would be covered with the conditions of appointment letter, and you can always say that it is contractual agreement I am supposed to give to them. And what you need to do to amend appointment letter? Contact us. We'll tell you what you have to write in your appointment letter. Okay. Now next important thing what they have changed, and which is again a welcome thing, that you are not required. A lot of exporter has entitled for NEIS, SEIS scripts, and they were claiming that these scripts were exempted. Now, as these scripts were exempted, the demon of Rule 43 would come into picture for common credit reversal. Now, the government has very categorically stated that the MEIS, the Rule 43 itself has been amended to state that MEIS, SEIS will not be covered for the purpose of computation of common reversal under Rule 42 as well as 43. And this is prospective in nature, not retrospective in nature. Okay. And most importantly, if you have any direct services, like if you appointed any consultant for getting MEIS, but that is still not ineligible because that's a direct service. But if you have other than these common services, you are not required to reverse anything on that. So again, a welcome move. अगर डायरेक्ट भी अलाउ करते थे तो अच्छा रहता था, बट फॉर दैट दे हैव टू नॉट जस्ट अमेंड रूल, दे हैव टू अमेंड द सेक्शंस आल्सो. सो ठीक है, रूल में अमेंड करके ये बेनिफिट एटलीस्ट कॉमन को दे दिया तो अच्छा रहता था, अच्छा है. Then next is again important mechanism what provided by the government is recredit of tax erroneously paid and erroneously refunded to the taxpayer on account of contravention under Rule 9610. So ये Rule 9610 क्या था? Rule 9610 ये था कि if you are a exporter claimed IGST exemption or advance authorization or advance authorization, or you are an export oriented unit claimed IGST exemption, then you cannot claim the refund under Rule 9610 by paying tax on your export of goods. अब इसमें क्या हुआ, कुछ टैक्स पेयर हैज स्टिल गॉन अहेड बिकॉज ये रूल 9610 को इतने बार चेंज किया है कि आज भी अगर कोई हमको पूछता था, हम जाके ऑफिस रूल चेक करते हुए कितने बार और कौन से पीरियड में क्या क्या किया था ये रूल में, इतने बार ये रूल 9610 किया है. एंड देन ऑन टॉप ऑफ दैट देयर इज हाई कोर्ट जजमेंट, सुप्रीम कोर्ट रूलिंग कि भाई ये पीरियड को एक्सक्लूड करो, ये पीरियड से इसको एप्लीकेबल करो. सो देयर आर सो मेनी, there was confusion from day one on these things. So secondly क्या हो रहा था, now if somebody has refunded this, मुझे erroneous refund मिला, I am supposed to pay back, and this amount I have paid from my electronic credit ledger, but government has demanded this amount back, so I have paid it back. Now earlier there was no mechanism by which this amount I could get back into my electronic credit ledger. मेरे पास एक ही ऑप्शन था, मैं 3B में वो अमाउंट डाल दूं, बट देन द मोमेंट आई पुट एनी अमाउंट इन 3B, आई एम इनवाइटिंग ASMT 10 कि योर डेटा इज नॉट मैचिंग विद 2B एंड लेट मी नो व्हाट आर द रीजंस फॉर द डिफरेंसेस. सो देयर वाज अ रियल प्रॉब्लम. So what the government has understood this problem and came to rescue of taxpayer by implementing the mechanism. तो ये mechanism के अंदर कैसे होगा, ये mechanism में क्या होगा, आपको first pay करना है, आपने जो गलत रिफंड लिया था आपको पे करना है, और देन आपको जाना है जुरिस्डिक्शनल GST ऑफिसर को, फिजिकल इंटरवेंशन है, आपको उसका चेहरा देखना पड़ेगा, आपको उसके पास जाना पड़ेगा. Then he will review this. They have specified an annexure also in the circular which you have to fill in. You'll have to go back to him. He will scrutinize it, and after scrutiny, he will pass an order for recrediting this amount to your electronic credit ledger. They have specified the form and everything into this. So the circular says, welcome provision. यहाँ पे जो लोग अटके थे, they will get the recredit of thing. Then second, rules are framed to clarify the calculation of interest payable on account of delayed payment of GST or ITC wrongly utilized. The rules are very clear. The only point we have in this rule is the rule says that interest has to be calculated from the date of filing of return or due date, whichever is earlier. Again, I am repeating, the rule says the interest has to be computed from the date of filing of return or the due date, whichever is earlier. कोई taxpayer honest है, if he has filed the return earlier, the interest would start from that date. Sometimes I get amazed. The government promotes that you file return early, but then you are also penalizing me just because I have filed return early. My interest calculator, it is getting started from the date. They should have made it from the due date. What was harm in doing that? On one hand, you asked me to file the return to avoid last minute rush. The moment I file return early, tomorrow something comes there, my interest would start from that. There only we have an issue, else these rules are properly framed and this would ensure the uniform implementation of it. So ये एक point which government has to look into it, and we are also proposing to GST Council through our channels that this has to be relooked into it. And we would also request yourself also to put these points through your associations or your channel so that this problem is clearly addressed. The next point, formula for refund of inverted duty structure. Earlier, it was only applicable for goods. Good that they have revised it to include services also. Now again the question would come कि भैया ये रूल कैसे अप्लाई करना है. रिफंड भले ही पहले के पीरियड का है पर मैं आज फाइल कर रहा हूं तो भी ये रूल एप्लीकेबल रहेगा, या ये रूल जो भी मैं रिफंड अभी से फाइल कर रहा हूं फॉर दिस टैक्स पीरियड उसी के लिए रहेगा. दिस क्वेश्चन वुड बी देयर इन एवरीबॉडीज माइंड. टू आंसर दिस क्वेश्चन आई वुड ऑल्सो लाइक टू ड्रॉ योर अटेंशन टू अदर रूल अमेंडमेंट्स. जब जब रिफंड में रूल अमेंड किया है उसको रिट्रोस्पेक्टिवली उन्होंने अप्लाई किया है. एग्जाम्पल 150% restriction when they are put in. That time they have not said that this would be applicable only from this date. They have said that this would be applicable even for the earlier period. So why not this also? So this rule will also be applicable even if you are filing a refund for the earlier period. Again, important thing. The next important change which Naval sir has also covered, that exemption on IGST has been extended without any sunset clause. Now what this shows the intent of the government that they want to continue this exemption for a longer period. They don't want to put it earlier pehle tha March, then June, then July, September. So there were so many dates which were specified. But now the notifications are amended in such a way that sunset clause of this exemption itself is removed. So they are saying we'll continue this exemption. This is what the intent which I could get from these amendment, that they want to continue for a longer period of time. Again, a welcome move. Of course, these taxpayers has an option to pay IGST on their imports and claim refund under Rule 9610. That option is still there. So when you have all these options, that flexibility needs to be continued, and rightly so they have now removed that sunset clause. So it brings clarity in the mind of taxpayer. देखो आज अगर आपको बिजनेस करना है तो you need a clarity. You cannot say that till 30th June IGST exemption है, उसके बाद शायद मुझे वर्किंग कैपिटल लगेगा. Correct? So that kind of uncertainty is not good in a vibrant tax structure. So good that they have removed this date so that ये date का झंझट चला गया और थोड़ा तो certainty आया है कि long term तक ये exemption रखेंगे. Now tax rate proposal. Here I'll not take much of your time. I'll deliberate some of the important tax rate wherever I feel it is important. I'll deliberate it. First important change which is applicable for every one of us. यहाँ पे सीधा अपने पॉकेट पे हिट होने वाला है. Is taxing the unbranded food grains and pre-packaged and retail packed goods from 18th July. Now we all go to a normal kirana store. Everybody we go. Now वहां पर हर चीज प्री पैक होती है आज के डेट में. Hardly people will sell it in loose. They'll already pack it. हर जगह पे पैकिंग अपने सामने ही करेगा ऐसा पॉसिबल नहीं है. Correct? Now all those things would be covered under the GST regime and would be subjected to tax rate at 5%. Now it is important to know the definition of pre-packed commodity under the Legal Metrology Act. What it says, a pre-packed commodity means a commodity which, without the purchaser being present, is placed in a package of whatever nature, whether sealed or not, so that product contained therein has a predetermined quality. Okay, so predetermined quantity चाहिए इधर, quality हो गया. So it's a pre-packed commodity which is packed when purchaser is not in front. That is covered in the pre-packed commodity. And what is retail package? Retail package is also defined under legal metrology rule to mean that retail package which are intended for retail sale to the ultimate consumer for the purpose of consumption of the commodity contained therein and includes imported package. So all these goods which are not packed in front of the consumer and covered under the legal metrology act would be subjected to 5% GST. Now this is going to impact everybody. Now you may say that Kirana guy, maybe in the composition and all those things, what would happen and all those things, it may not directly a 5% impact. But we have to understand, a lot of people go to Reliance, DMart, where a lot of things are packed, pre-packed. Earlier, those were exempted. Earlier, what was taxed? Only branded goods. And what the branded definition is, trademark registered branded goods होंगे तो ही वो subjected to GST थे. अभी वो they are saying इसमें बहुत confusion हो रहा है हमको branded unbranded. Now we want to make it to everybody. आपको confusion हो रहा है इसलिए आप सबको tax लगाएंगे. And now a new thing has started from the IT cell. अगर अपना श्रीलंका जैसा position नहीं होना है तो tax base बढ़ाओ. अरे भैया टैक्स बेस बढ़ाओ, ऐसा नहीं कि नहीं बढ़ाओ, but you have to also look at the inflation. Sir was talking about inflation. Though the yesterday's inflation rate were moderately okay, but still it was an increasing trend. By adding GST, what you will achieve? You will further add to that. You will add fuel to already burned inflation. So this is going to impact everybody. Trade associations are behind this to take a reverse step on this. Hope so a better sense would be prevailed here. Now, second, they are making inroad into healthcare services. A couple of days back, I have written an article on this, which we have published. So this, the article covers everything on this. Now they are making an inroads to taxing healthcare. And I was amazed with the comment of Revenue Secretary, the Honorable Revenue Secretary, which on record stated that if somebody can afford 5,000, they can also afford 250. What an insensitive comment. I don't go to hospital by choice. I don't take room by choice. There are many reasons I may take a separate room for me. And what is the value of 5,000 in today's this? You go to any hospital, bigger hospital, the minimum room rent would be 5,000. So does that Revenue Secretary means that a poor guy should never go to that hospital? And what is his definition of affordability? Who is he to decide what is affordable to somebody or not? And making such insensitive comment, particularly when it comes to healthcare. Had it been any other thing on leisure, on hotel rooms, I'll not say this comment. But when it comes to room rent for hospitals, you have to be very sensitive. You cannot make such kind of comments that if you can afford 5,000, you can also afford 250. Who are they? And from where they come up with this definition of affordability to justify the levy of the tax? And certainly all hospitals. Now, again to tell you, the GST Council decisions, whatever they have released the public, this says that these would be applicable from 18th July. Today we are on 13th July. Till date, the notifications are not issued. What we are supposed to do? Are you going to issue notifications on 18th and ask you to pay tax from 18th? Do they really think that People would be ready the day they say that notification would be issued. It's insane. It's insane when it comes to taxing healthcare services and justifying that. So I'm sorry, but I'm very critical when it comes to healthcare, taxing healthcare. But now this is the law. You have no choice. What hospital need to do? Hospital need to clearly identify that which rooms would be subjected to GST, which rooms will not be subjected to GST. Hospitals today were not taking GST registrations. They have to take GST registration. And it is important that even though the room rent is below 20 lakhs, but there are other services which are exempt for computing aggregate turnover, that would also be added. So naturally 20 लाख के ऊपर हर एक का टर्नओवर जाने वाला है, and then they have to obtain a GST registration even if they have one room where they are charging 5,000 and comply with the GST regulations. They have to make necessary changes in their softwares. They have to communicate the patients who are already admitted. जो पेशेंट एडमिट है, जैसे मैंने आपको बोला 18 को वो बोल रहे चेंज लाने वाले, आज तक नोटिफिकेशन नहीं आया. जो पेशेंट एडमिट हो गया कल से उसका रेट बढ़ने वाला है 18 से, उसको कम्युनिकेट कौन करेगा? और वो पेशेंट का मेंटेलिटी क्या, पहले ही वो उसके बीमारी से परेशान है, तो भैया आपका रूम रेंट आज से 5,220 हो गया है. That is what the hospital will communicate. So very important and sensitive thing which are going to impact in this case. I have written the article that I was critical in my article also. You can go through that if for more details onto this. Now other tax rate changes, I'll not go much into it. Some of the rationales were to ensure that there are no inverted duty structure in those things. But one point is going to impact that there are a lot of retail things which are appearing there. So my MRP, where there are MRP goods which I sell goods on MRP, suddenly there is increase in tax rate. It is going to impact my margin. Who is going to reimburse me for that? So retailers have to be very clear on those things. Services, certainly there are again rationalization. The works contract services, particularly in government contracts, has been increased from 12 to 18% or 5 to 12%. You have to understand, we understand that this is to address the inverted duty structure. The government has came up with this amendment. But now the taxpayer has to go back to their contract conditions and see whether they can get this escalated tax amount from the government or his contractor or somebody. Whether that conditions are there in contract or not, that validation one has to do. Now, in terms of exemption which are withdrawn on checks, maps, another important exemption, if somebody was supplying goods to scientific and research institutions which are public funded, were subjected to 5%. Now the government intend to remove that exemption. They say that whatever is applicable on those goods, you have to pay. Then storage and warehousing of commodities which attract tax like nuts, spices. Earlier, entire agriculture produce was exempted. Now the storage for taxable goods would be taxable. That's the logic of taxing those things. Then all fumigation services. Secondly, Naval sir pondered upon residential dwelling. Here I like to add 2-3 things. If you look at the GST Council clarification or the PIB release, sorry, there are so many notifications, circular, PIB release, everything. So as a professional, we have to go through everything. So what the PIB release says that renting of residential dwelling to business entities, and in bracket they have what they have specified is more important. I'll add to what Naval sir says, that it says that registered person. So here I am assuming when they say registered person means GST registered person and not any other business entity registered person. So here, of course, we have to wait for notification, but prima facie reading of that notification says that if you are giving residential dwelling to a GST registered person, then it would be subjected to GST at the rate of 18%. I only have one question here. How I'll get to know that? I am a landlord how I will get to know whether he is registered or not? Or today he is not registered and in between he started paying tax, how I will get to know? So if you are bringing such changes which are very difficult to comply, then certainly there would be non-compliance into this. A question can come in also our mind that I am an employee of XYZ organization and I have done an investment in a business property and I am giving that business property in rent. The rent amount is below 20 lakh, but my salary is 1 crore. Whether I have to pay on that 20 lakhs or that rent amount, or I can enjoy that aggregate turnover breakup of 20 lakh and say that I am not supposed to pay tax on whatever amount is coming. Correct? There would be questions in mind whether my salary would also be counted as a service which I'm giving to my employer and it would be added into aggregate turnover. To answer, fortunately, as on date, it is not covered. Why it is not covered? Any services given by employee to employer are covered in Schedule 3. And Schedule 3 is not a supply itself. Forget about exempt supply. So fortunately, as on date, it do not cover. But जिस दिन गवर्नमेंट को समझ गया अरे यार इधर भी अपन कर सकते, कुछ लोग टैक्स से इसमें बच रहे, they may start it. But principally itself, many a time the landlord may not know the person is registered or not. There's no mechanism as on date by which somebody will get to know whether I'm registered or not. So in such cases, whenever you are giving on rent, you have to take some declaration from him that you will first intimate me or you will tell me if at all not any liability comes on me subsequently, I will put on you. So such kind of things you have to ensure while doing your agreements. Small changes, but it is impacting a lot. So broadly, if you look at it, timelines for implementation. For taxpayer, it is immediate. The taxpayer do not get any leeway. Taxpayer timelines are same. But for government, the timelines are, we all know there's another parallel law written by INFI and GST. The day they will decide, from that day only the compliance would happen. The GSTR 3B is amended, but still it is not available. The provision for recrediting the amount is there, but still the GSTN is not amended to give me that provision. So still we are experiencing this parallel implementation of law. One is actual law, which we all are complying. The taxpayer is supposed to comply. The professional are supposed to read. There is another law, which is defined by INFI and GSTN based on their timelines. So we have to really see when we'll get to see those changes, wherein the impact is also there on GSTN portal. Now to summarize whatever we have discussed, I came to summary section and then we'll go to chat. I'll also request Naval sir to join me to address the question and answer. To summary, when we look at this, the GST Council decision, first thing, the first impression comes to the mind that they want to widen the tax base. And of course, they are not, the Revenue Secretary has clearly said, is a still scope of improving the taxation in services. So their intention is very clear. They want to widen the tax rate, tax base, tax rate pay. They are not yet discussing, but they can keep on throwing news to their so-called sources in the market that they are going to review the tax rate, whether to increase or whether to decrease, and all those things keep on coming through so-called sources. Our sources says. So, but the base they want to increase. The GST Council expect that the taxpayer has to be expert and perfect from the day one. These changes again reiterate that they expect that the day they say the taxpayer should be ready. Taxpayer को कोई time नहीं मिलता भाई. And always last 5 साल से taxpayer एक ही चीज मांग रहा है कि भैया हमको कोई reasonable time दो to adopt these changes which they are not able to give. Of course, at Bitsol India, we thrive hard to interpret all these changes, the provisions. We help our clients virtually as well as on site to ensure that these compliances are met. I'll sign off this my session with a quote from the famous business tycoon Richard Branson. What Richard Branson has said, that business opportunities are like buses. There is always another one coming. So when I look at this statement, I realize what a taxpayer says when we relate this comment to the GST. The changes in GST are like buses. There's always another one coming your way. So let's meet you again on next changes which would be coming on GST. Certainly there is changes. The structure is evolving. So now I will invite Naval sir to join us for question and answer session. Naval sir. Yeah, I'll read the questions. Now, first question I'll take is what will happen in case of differential duty paid to customs on account of manual challans? How to take IGST credit this? So, sir.
This issue is always there and it is also prevailing today. So far as that we are taking as the other credit, we have to continue to take the other credit. But tomorrow, as rightly said by Manoj, like ASMT 10, it will come because it is related to imports and you are taken in other credits, and imports directly is getting reflected with the ICE gate. So that question will come, but nobody will be able to recover that amount. So you please take in the other credit only.
Okay, so next question comes from a pharma industry veteran working in indirect tax. I'm not naming the person, but I'm just naming the background because pharma has a lot of reversal on account of 42, 43. So he has a question that the provision rule 42 says that you have to reverse provisionally and then by the year end you have to take back the credit if you have excessively reversed or reverse more if you have done it shortly. So how this would happen in the revised format?
You see, that rule where it is the provisional and this has not changed.
Absolutely.
Right. So it will show as other reversal. Right. And if it is excess is there is no sumo to credit. So you have to apply for the refund.
So certainly there is a point what you are referring that in which line we have to refer. If at all there is a, because we all know GST or 3P do not have any negative amounts.
Negative.
So this certainly needs to be addressed. We'll have to put this before appropriate authority, but till that time, you add it in all other ITC so that it would get hit there. So very valid question that what would happen if at all if there is some reclaim on account of excess reversal.
But excess reversal, you cannot take the suit.
The provision says.
Provision says other reversal. Other duties.
Correct. So next question comes again related to customs. That if a company has paid customs duty, but the material has not received in the company premises, how we can show in return?
It is same in the 16.4, that line is there. The important point which Manoj has highlighted, you will take the credit only when goods and services has been received for the other inputs, but that will come there. So that point where you have not received the goods and services, that bill of entry, you will show in the reversal column in 4B column.
Correct.
And 4B2. And the things which is you will be able to taking the recredit subsequently after receipt of the goods. You have to show it into other credit. If you have not shown in that column 4B1, 4B2, you and you have the whatever the credit subsequently you have taken, if that is not matching, then you have the issues. So kindly note, somebody says that I will take only whatever the credit I have received. Whatever the goods I have not received, I will not claim even though it is the GST or 2B. No, that you have to show as a total credit, show as a reversal, and that amount, whenever material is going to come, you have to take the recredit. Otherwise, that differential amount, you will be mandated with the show cause notice, that is definite.
Okay, next question is again on 2B and all those things. There's a question again from a pharma veteran. They are saying that in 2B, there can be transactions which are not pertaining to us. Not pertaining to our transaction. We don't know from where those came. So how I should deal in such situation?
Again, the same in the 4B, two column, you have to show that. So even though it is not your credit, you see, it is, even though it is not your baby itself, it is orphan, you will adopt it and then take it out in 4B2.
Absolutely. मैं सिर्फ ऐड करूंगा सर, ये केस कैसा है, बेगानी शादी में अब्दुल्ला दीवाना. So मेरा क्रेडिट नहीं है, तो फिर भी मुझे पहले बताना है और फिर रिवर्स करना है. करेक्ट.
फिर यानी वही टाइम रिवर्स करना है, वो दूसरे कॉलम.
So another question, of course, not related to this GST council, but the question came that whether GST is applicable for notice period recovery from employee by their employer. Of course, I think this question
I'll say Madras High Court decision very clearly says that it is the contractual arrangement, but another High Court decision is differently, and the department has gone into the Supreme Court against the Madras High Court. So still that is the disputable, because they say earlier in the service tax regime, even the FAQ, if you go through, they say it is the tolerator to act of breaching the contract. But Madras High Court has rightly dealt into that, but only it is the Madras High Court decision challenged in the Supreme Court. So if you can recover now, it is better you recover and pay. Otherwise, that liability, if decision goes against, then that liability along with interest and 100% mandatory penalty will come on you.
Sir, I think the question is from the point of view of that clarification issue.
Perquisite, wording is
so probably I'm just linking that.
Notice pay is not the perquisite. Perquisite means you get additional benefit in kinds or in other terms, but you are recovering here in this case. Therefore, it cannot be, notice pay recovery cannot be called as a perks.
So next question is on B2C supplies and that declaration on invoice. The question is, for B2C supplies, we are generating a payment QR code, whether still we need to print declaration on the face of invoice. Sir, with your permission, I'll answer this question. You have to understand the QR code currently you are putting is pertaining to payments. It's a dynamic QR code so that the buyer can scan that QR code and make the payments towards invoice. That QR code compulsion was from the entire different perspective of ensuring there is a more use of digital payments, so that every invoice will have that QR code. You can just scan it and pay from there rather than involving cash transactions and all those things. So this declaration has nothing to do with that QR code. So you have to declare if at all the e-invoice is applicable to you, but you are not raising e-invoice because you are not supposed to raise that. You have to give that declaration on that invoice.
Now, you see, what is the government intention? Let me be very clear on that. If you are covered under the e-mechanism, e-invoicing mechanism, and under 48(2), if you are covered, that declaration has to be there. Otherwise, any company issued the tax invoice other than invoice, it is not the valid document, so ITC may be disputed. You see, next line of thinking is the same. That is the reason this clause of declaration has brought in. Object of bringing the declaration is only to see that more than 20 crore turnover, with that available data is there with the government, with the mapping of income tax side and MCA side and your GST side. So your turnover is known. If such declaration is not there, and still you have the tax invoice, when you are eligible for raising the e-invoice, that is not the valid document, it will not be allowed you to take the credit.
Correct.
Because that also will not be get reflected in GSTR 2B.
Okay. So this would be true in cases of particularly banking and financial and this. No. But when it comes to B2C, nobody takes the credit.
No, B2C, no.
Or in case of...
No, what is happening even today, industries, they are not checking their suppliers. They are supposed to raise the tax e-invoice, though the turnover crosses the 20 crore. And still they are availing the credit. It will be automatically noticed therefrom.
Okay. So next question is pertaining to credit notes. Now the question is, the credit notes are also coming in GSTR 2B. What action I am supposed to take on those credit notes?
So 2B, you are not in any way, when GSTR 2B, it will be auto-populated, that will be taken care of. So you need not to take any action on that.
So, but I have to look into those credit notes.
Those credit notes, so whether that is related to you or not, that definitely you have to take.
And whether it is correct or not, whether I have accounted or not, and accordingly I have to take an action.
Absolutely.
जैसे positive number के लिए मुझे action लेना
है, negative के लिए,
वैसे मुझे negative number के लिए भी action लेना है.
Correct.
Now, there's one question from a fellow professional on inverted duty structure refund.
You see,
so what he says,
I read that question.
So I have to read that question for everybody.
Yeah.
So allow me that time. That what I have explained during my discussion, that the new formula will also be applicable for input services, even for the refund which is getting pertaining to period prior to this amendment. So he has a question that does whether the one who has already applied would be at whatever you may say, loss or something, because he has already applied without considering input services, and somebody is applying delayed, he's entitled for this. So how that parity issue would be addressed?
Now let us talk on this. What is rule 89? Or what is the rule 89.5? It talks about application for refund of claim. It is not said for the period, in the sense applicable for the period. Whenever you are going to make application for the period, because you are given the 2 years. So yearly they are not going to track. At that particular time, what was the rule? At that particular time, what was the rule? 2 years has been given, and now 2 years plus 2 years, because 2 years now, that period of 1st February to 28 March, 28 February. And therefore, even when the 100, rightly said by Manoj, 150% when it was coming, immediately on the second day, whatever the applications as received by the government or the department said, please provide me 150% price of the domestic where exports are there. And to my, even to as per law also, and in my right reading also, what you see, it was there, you can apply on monthly basis or you can apply after 2 years. So that even the rule changes, that it cannot be said there will be a disparity. That law of the land, of law of the rule is applicable when you are making this, because the wording for the period when that is not there. You said what are the, how you have to apply. An application should be filed before the period of limitation of the 2 years. But period is not mentioned there. Otherwise, for earlier period, that rule, and after this period, this rule, that is not there.
Now, question came again on this, whether this rule is applicable from June month GSTR 3B or to be filed before 20th July.
You see, we have also the same question in our mind, because again, the notification has come on 5th July. So I'll say any 3B is filed after 5th July, he has to file in the new form. However, as this is the law of the GST law made by on the recommendation of GST Council, but there is a parallel law, as Manoj has emphasized emphatically, that there is a GSTN portal, there is different law, and that is the reason when GSTN portal will be available, that time you will be filing the new form, and after that, any return which you will file in the new form only. Now the question will come, सर वो टाइम का हमने अकाउंटिंग इनएलिजिबल क्रेडिट का दिखाया नहीं, ये इसका दिखाया नहीं, तो क्या करें? So dig out that because of delay, you should have the penalty of delayed fee as well as delayed as more work. No option.
Yes, one question again on the return filing. That I mean, I'll summarize the question. The question is a little bigger, but somebody has written that whether I file in new form or old form, whatever ITC I am availing is the same amount. I continue to follow the old practice. What would be the implication?
The first thing is how you will file is the old practice. You are not permitted because it will be auto-populated and only one column that other credit, that only you can do it. Now, whole question is what I tried to say, assuming that you have not reported 17.5 and you have not taken the credit of that. Fair enough. To that extent, there may not be, only the thing is of the penalty will be there of wrong filing of the return or not this one. But when you have not received the goods and services, or somebody has not filed the return, or somebody has not complied 16.4, section 16 has not been complied fully. So that credit, if you don't show separately, you don't reverse separately, subsequently, the question of allowing will be always debated. That is the reason, please don't make your rule law of the land. There is a already GSTN rule, outside the rule is prevailing. Why you are adding to your rule? So please follow what is stated. Otherwise, you will have to employ more and more persons to reply ASMT 10 and DRC 01.
Yes, sir. So there's one more question. Yeah, I'm first closing Q&A. This question relating to taxability of common effluent treatment plant when somebody is paying consideration along with the infrastructure cost. Here I like to add that the tax rate notifications are yet to be issued. We have to really wait here because the PIB release just talked about taxing the effluent treatment with the tax rate. So we have to wait for the rate notification. As I've said, that the GST Council they release says that it should be applicable from 18 July. Today already 13 July. We are yet to get that notification. So we have to wait to answer that.
But no sooner notification is issued and clarity is there on that, we will be definitely replying to the queries. That is our promise. But let me tell you, if it is the consolidated amount, then it will come as a composite supply. And then in that case, principal supply will prevail. But again, exempt supply and taxable supply will not be combined. So that aspect will have to be seen.
Okay, so I'll take questions. Some of the questions that came in chat box. Some we have already addressed during session, so I'll not take this. There's one question in case of bill of entry, whether the physical receipt will be compulsory for availing ITC. So whether we have to reclaim. Certainly, as I've explained in my session, all those food will be editable. So if you have not received, so you will not get it, the credit in the same month. You have to reverse it and then add it. Then invoice uploaded by the supplier but not identified whether ITC or non-ITC, in which table to be shown. We have same that if you are not clear whether it is eligible to you or not, you continue to report in table 4B2, that is others. हो सकता है आपके मन में confusion है, permanent है कि नहीं है. So in that case, you do it in others rather than putting it in reversals. क्योंकि परमानेंट रिवर्सल में डालोगे और फिर क्रेडिट लोगे तो उसका लिटिगेशन ज्यादा आएगा. If you are not clear, you are not done reconciliation, put everything in others. But आपका ही काम आगे बढ़ाने वाले हो. The another question comes that whether declarations on invoice needs to be printed on ISD or self invoice. No, you are not required to prepare it because the rule is very clear that जहाँ पे वहाँ पे नहीं देना है उन्हीं के केस में आपको करना है, which we have listed down. Then what about reversal on account of road tape licenses? So very good question. What would happen in case I will sell the road tape scripts?
You see, like a MEIS and ACIS, it is also the script, so it will be exempted, and hence 42, 43 reversal is also not required.
Correct. Or sir, to answer your question again, my last comment: GST changes are like bus. Once again, it will come. So that would certainly will come. Okay, I think we have covered all questions. There are certain critical specific questions which you can get in touch with us. Our email IDs are there, our contact details are there. You can drop us the mail so that we'll reply in the right context. There are so many questions here, but the context or questions are not clear in which they are getting asked. So, but once we get in touch with you, we'll understand those. So with this, just let me again go back to question and answer. What will happen to old period invoices which will be booked in future but pertains to previous period? So this is the question. What would happen for old period? Even if for old period invoices, the same rule will be applicable.
Same rule is applicable.
So there's no change into old period invoices. So you can avail, because as long as it is appearing in your previous 2B, things would be clearer. Of course, I can understand what is your point is. In that case, that amount would be inflated in that row. Certainly it would be inflated because the change is coming in between. That track you have to keep. A good point which you have raised. Okay, so I think there are other questions which would need discussion with those respective person. We'll do that. I hope you have enjoyed our session. Of course, once rate notification will come, we'll share our update, and if at all required, we'll take one more webinar on this. Of course, we do not intend to tax you further. Already we have taken your 2 hours, 15 minutes for this session. On behalf of every one of us, I thank you, Naval sir, for giving us insight on, as I've said, on auspicious day of Guru Purnima. We bow down to you on this day. And I thank you all participants for joining this session. It's encouraging that more than 200 people, 250 people have joined today's session. It's an encouragement for us. You can reach out to us. You can share your comments for all our future events also, so that we'll come up with more better sessions for you. So thank you, everybody, and have a safe day. It's raining everywhere. Take care. Thank you, sir.
Good evening.